Good morning, all. Okay, is my voice audible and my screen visible for you people?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Naren, you are the first person who always reply. Thank you. Okay, fine. So today we'll discuss about um, Pentium processor, the basic architecture of a Pentium processor. So in Pentium processor, we have various versions: Pentium, Pentium 1, Pentium 2, Pentium 3, 4, and Pro Pentium. So we have different versions. So, but we'll be seeing only in detail about a basic Pentium architecture. Okay. So 80586. So what do you mean by 805? Any idea? You have rough idea? 80586 processor. So what are the processes that we discussed so far? So from starting from 8086, 80186, 286, 386 until 486 processor. So it was developed in 1989. So all these processes, they comes under a fourth generation category, fourth generation of process. And starting from pin 80586, 80586, so these process comes under fifth generation processor. So we call it as what? Fifth generation process. So all the process it starting from 80586. And so Intel, again the same Intel only manufactured developed this fifth generation processor 80586. So commonly called as P5. So since it is a fifth generation processor, Pentium, so we call it as what? P5 processor, or in general we call it as what? Pentium processor. Okay, so actually Pentium is a word usually derived from the Greek word penti, so which means 5. So it is derived from a Greek word. So whenever I say Pentium processor, so it refers to what? A family of processors which share a common architecture and instruction set. And this Pentium processor has been developed in the year 1993. So it started Pentium processor, Pentium processor developed in the year 1993, which means the fifth generation of processor starts from this year. Okay. And if you see the basic features of this Pentium processor, so it's again it requires a 5-volt supply voltage, and it is usually fabricated with a 0.8 micron BiCMOS technology. So bipolar complementary metal oxide semiconductor. So we use those technology to build or fabricate this Pentium processor. And again, it's a 32-bit processor, which means what? It has 32-bit address bus and 64-bit data bus. See the size of the data bus, it has been drastically increased to 64 bits. So whereas in 8086, it is just only 16 bits. Here we have what? So which means 4 times greater than the greater than your what? 8086 processor. Okay. And then apart from this, the clock frequency, if you have noticed, the clock frequency of Pentium processor is around 60 megahertz or 66 megahertz, depending upon the versions. We have different frequencies available. So imagine the speed. So we'll be having execute instructions in a very faster manner. And so we still have another features to be just discussed. So we have something called branch prediction. So branch prediction, I'll tell you later what is meant by branch prediction. So we all know that we have a feature called instruction pipelining in all the processes we discussed so far. But though we have certain advantage in incorporating those instruction pipelining concept, there is one major drawback in using this concept. So that drawback can be overcome with the help of this concept called branch prediction. So I'll tell you later what is meant by branch prediction. Okay, maybe after a few 4 to 5 slides later. Okay, and in addition to it, we have what 2 independent integer pipelines are available. So we call it as U and V pipeline. So we have 2 independent integer pipelines, and we have a separate exclusive floating point pipeline also available. And this 8086 is compatible with all 80386 instructions. So with the help of CISC unit. Okay. Actually, so whatever process that we discussed so far, no, they all comes under CISC. So have you ever heard of these terms, risk, CISC, those state of terms? Any idea? You have RISC, CISC, risk, CISC. So reduced instruction set computer, complex instruction set computer. So and whatever process that we are discussing, no, these in the process have usually complex instructions. So all this comes under CISC. And next generation, no, after Pentium, the CISC type of process, the Intel started manufacturing a RISC process. Anyway, that we'll not see in the, here now, but just to have an idea. So these processes that you're discussing all comes under your CISC. So complex instruction set computer. Okay, fine. And here we have I think in previous your 80486 we stated that what we have a cache memory available. So it was the first process where the cache concept has been introduced. So here also, but the cache memory is available. So we have a separate caches for what code and data. Okay, so it makes still further better easy for accessing. So we have memory management unit, especially for paging purposes. And in addition to it, we also have a dual process support. So which means on chip, we'll be having another processor called EPIC. So advanced programmable interrupt controller EPIC. So it also has that on-chip process incorporated along with this processor. So all these are available in 80586 processor, Pentium. So this is architecture, basic architecture. So here we're not seeing in detail, okay, architecture. So a overview of what basic block diagram of your Pentium architecture. Just have a overlook so that we can discuss about it in detail. So we have 64-bit bus interface, 64-bit data bits, code cache, data cache. We have, which means we have two different caches. As I said previously in construction, so we have two different cache memories for code and data. We have prefetch buffers, two integer. I said. So if you are thorough with the features, so most of the points that we discussed in features, same thing also reflects here. So we have two integer pipelines, U pipeline, we call it as U pipeline and V pipeline, and we have register bit branch prediction. So I said the branch prediction is also available. So again, I said we have a individual or separate exclusive floating point unit is available. So in addition to that, we have multiplier, adder, and divider units. All these are available. So this is a basic or simple block diagram of your Pentium architecture. So we'll see if we, by just referring to this block diagram, we can just say that what are the components that are available. Okay. So so as I said, what the internal architecture of Pentium 32-bit processor, Pentium processor, it has 32-bit address bus. So you can calculate the memory, internal physical memory, 2 power 32, and we have what a 64-bit data bus. So we have 64-bit data bus also available. So and then as I said, so this Pentium processor data bus, it serves the on-chip caches rather than your registers, internal 32-bit registers. So you know what is the advantage in serving the on-chip caches. So it makes your access time or reduces your access time. Okay. So and usually the internal and external data buses, they are usually connected to the help of these caches. Okay. So the basic or components inside this architecture usually consists of these parts, whatever I have listed. So we, as I said, we have a separate cache memory for code. So it's an 8-byte in size. We have 8-byte code cache, and similarly we have what 8-byte data cache. So in 80486 also we have cache, but we don't have separate caches for code and data. We have a single unique cache for 8-bit, and later it has been scaled up to 16-bit advanced versions. So here we have separate versions, separate data caches available, data and memory caches available. So we have transition look aside buffer, TLB. We'll see what is the function of each and everything in detail later. So we have a branch trace buffer, BTB, called as BTP. We have two integer pipelines called as U pipeline and V pipeline, a separate floating point pipeline. A microcode ROM is available, and then we have a control unit also is available in this process. Okay. So first we'll discuss about your code and data cache. Okay. So any idea how I code and data cache? So for what purpose we use cache memories? See, we are not going in detail. So just a basic function of a cache memory. You can just say the same thing will be here also. So what is the main purpose? Why you go for a cache? So here also we have what a separate code and data caches. So and the cache line size is 32 bits. So similar to your what 80486 processor, and each cache will be connected with its what transition lookup table. Okay, so and this with the help of this, no, the paging unit of the paging unit is which is present in your MMU. So it helps to rapidly convert your linear code or data address into what physical address. And since we have two different separate caches, no, the prefetch buffer will not conflict with your data access cycle. There is not necessary is required. So all this it happens in your code and data cache. So moving on to your branch prediction. So branch prediction part usually consists of two units. One you call it as what, two units inside internally. So one you call it as control unit, and another one branch trace buffer (BTB). Okay. So we'll see the function of each in each buffer. So before going to this, I just want you to ask a question. So what could be the drawback in case of your instruction pipelining? So you all know what is pipelining. So since we have just we'll go back to our 8086. In case of your 8086, we know that we have two independent units, execution unit and BIU, bus interface unit. So while the current execution unit is executing the instruction, instead of being idle, the bus interface unit will try to fetch the next instruction and store it in 6-byte queue. So this is the process usually called as what pipelining. So by doing so, what you say that what the execution time or is reduced to something like that. So now I'm saying that there is a drawback in this. Can you guess what could be the case? So because of instruction pipelining, what could be the drawback that normally a processor will face? In what situations? Just take a small example. So you are standing in a queue. It's as in that you are standing in a queue for to buy a ticket at a railway station, a particular counter. And after standing for 10 or 15 minutes, suddenly the counter gets closed. So what you will do? So whatever time that you have waited, no, it's of no use. Am I correct? So same case here also happens. So as the bus interface unit, no, it stores the subsequent instructions inside the queue. In case if while execution, no, if processor comes across any branch instruction like a conditional branch or unconditional, okay, leave it. If it comes across any conditional instruction, so jump so and so, or jump no carry, jump if parity, so if conditions. So what happens? Now you can guess. Now what happens? So whatever instructions that has been stored in the queue in the pipeline is of no use. So we have to flush all the instructions, and we have to reload the instruction queue again with a new set of instructions where the conditional instruction points out. Am I correct? So at that case, what happens? All the instructions stored will be of no use. So this drawback only you can overcome here with the help of this branch trace buffer. A branch consequently called as what? Branch prediction. Okay. So in case of your this BTB, we call it as what? Branch trace buffer. So it is used to store the target address. Okay, target address means that the condition depending upon your branch operation. So it is this BTB, no, branch trace buffer. It is used to store the target address, and apart from not only this target address, it is also used to store the statistical information about the branch operations. Okay, so whatever. So what it will do means the branch prediction. So we have some algorithm being followed. So it will be able to what? Predict branches and cause the Pentium to what? To select the mostly likely target address for the instruction fetching. So by doing this, what happens means your what you say that pipeline frees up cost due to what pipeline flushes and the subsequent fetching operations can be reduced, and the program execution can be what accelerated, can be faster now, can be what made much more faster. Okay, so for this purpose we use what? BTB. So next is a control unit. Again, the control unit, no, we have what the control unit we have 5 stage integer pipelines U and V. Okay, I think we can just go for diagram next slide, so it will be easy for you to understand. So you can just look this diagram, it will be easy for you. Okay, let's wait. I'll first complete this interview. Okay, so the control unit controls the 5-stage integer pipeline. U the pipelines. We have 2 pipelines, U and V, and also in addition to it, also controls the 8-stage floating point pipeline also. Okay, so the integer pipelines, whatever we are discussing now, they are used for all instructions which are normally not involved with any floating point operations. So if there is no need of any floating point operations, obviously what the integer pipelines will take care of it. So in case of the Pentium processor, it can transmit 2 integer instructions in the same clock. So and so that the performance could be increased. So the third point, can transfer 2 integer instructions in the same clock. So by doing this, what you can achieve is your performance can be improved. Okay, so this only called as what? Superscalar architecture. So that's what we'll be discussing in the next slide. So why you call it a superscalar architecture means because of this. So just have a look at the diagram. So how many stages are there here? Totally we have what? 5 stages. Okay, so first stage is your instruction fetch, IF or prefetch, followed by what? Decode 1, decode 2. So you have 2 different stages, decode 1, decode 2, and then what? Execute and then write back. So we have what? 5 different stages. Okay, so the first 4 stages of your 14 point, if you see, means what? They overlap with your U pipeline. Okay, and parallel operation of this integer and floating point is also possible. Okay, under certain conditions, provided certain conditions. Okay, so how will you describe this integer pipelines? Any idea you have? Instruction fetch, decode to D2. Okay, we'll see and discuss. Okay, no problem. This is just a so this is nothing but what diagram that you have been projected here is nothing but shows the superscalar organization of your Pentium processor. So this one called as what? Superscalar organization, which means what? Parallelly. Okay, so parallelly can transmit what? 2 integer instructions at the same clock cycle. So thereby increasing your performance. So the Pentium processor, it has something called microcode support unit. So this microcode support unit, the main function is to support what? Complex functions. Okay, now so actually, in addition to it, the support unit also controls the pipelines within the microcode. So okay, so next slide. Okay, so next moving on to next slide. See, I think I didn't explain about the prefetch, decode 1, decode 2 and all. So I will come and see. The diagram is just to show you that superscalar architecture means so both the functions will carry simultaneously. For that purpose, I have projected the diagram, and we'll see how does that function, the flow occurs. Okay, in detail. So as I said previously, what 80586 has 2 integer pipelines, U and V, and it is also called as superscalar processor. Okay, well, so so why called as what? Actually, this process of issuing 2 instructions in parallel, that concept only called as pairing. So since we have 2 integer pipelines, and both integer pipelines, they have been issued with what instructions simultaneously, we call it as what? Parallel. So the process of issuing 2 instructions in parallel is known as pairing. Okay, so you should know what about the functions of U pipeline as well as V pipeline. So as I said previously, the U pipeline is used to handle of the entire instruction set of the Pentium. Okay, but the V pipeline, they have certain limitations. Okay, so you cannot able to execute all the instructions with the help of this V pipeline. Okay, so V pipeline is able to handle only what simple instructions without any microcode support. Whereas U pipeline will execute all the instructions by default by the help of microcode support. Okay. Example, if I want to say, means simple integer instructions such as load, store type instructions, simple floating point instructions like exchange instructions. For those type of instructions, we use what U pipeline. Okay. So whereas V pipeline, whereas your U pipeline can execute what any legitimate Pentium instructions. Okay, fine. And then Okay, this one is good. Okay. So now we'll see what, as I said, you have two integer pipelines and a floating point unit in the Pentium processor. So here it shows integer pipeline. Okay, so for a single integer pipeline, the flow has been represented. There is that pipelining, the 5-stage pipelining has been represented. So each integer unit, as I said, will be having a basic 5-stage pipeline. So this is what shown in your superscale architecture. So as I said, no, then you will see in detail in here. So we'll discuss about each and every stage here. So starting from your instruction fetch or prefetch. So what could be a function here? What is the function of the processor here at this stage? I think you can able to answer this question, very basic question. Instruction fetch. So in case of your instruction fetch or prefetch stage, so in this stage of this pipeline, integer pipeline of Pentium processor, so instructions will be fetched from the instruction cache. Okay, as I said, we have a separate cache memory for data and program. So instructions will be fetched from the instruction cache. Okay, so since the instructions are stored in this instruction cache rather than your memory, so this reduces your fetching time. Okay, so after fetching, what happens? The CPU aligns the codes properly, and then it will be moved after completion of this stage. Next stage will be your decoding stages. D1 and D2 will be executed. Okay, so moving on to your decode one stage. So decode one stage. So what is the function of this decode one stage? So the CPU, what does it do? It decodes the instructions and it generates a control word. Okay. So the D1 pipeline stage, no, we have since here we'll be having what? I think hope you remember that superscale architecture. So there, if you have seen means, if you have noticed means, you'll be having what? Instruction fetch is common, but if you have noticed means, we'll be having two simultaneous or parallel D1 stages. Okay. So it is available. So D1 pipeline stage has two parallel instruction decoders. The function of these means that they implement the pairing rules. So for that purpose, I want to mention here pairing rules. So which means both instructions will be fetched simultaneously. Okay. Only a single control word may be sufficient to start what execution of a data transfer, arithmetic, or logical operations in case of this processor. Okay. And the processor also supports what RISC as well as six complex instruments with the help of what this micro-coded controlling sequence is also possible. Okay. So the main purpose of decode is decode instructions and generate your control word. So moving on to your stage, third stage, your decode 2 or D2 stage. So it is actually required when the control word from your previous stage, D1 stage, is decoded to complete the instruction decoding. Okay. So in this stage, what does the CPU do? Means it generates the address for the data memory. So first stage it generates memory, what it decodes, and then it generates your code word. So here it will control word. In this case, what happens means it generates a memory for data address for your memory. Okay. So it generates addresses for a data memory. So next stage will be execute stage, E stage. Okay. So the E stage is used by for both ALU or arithmetic and logical operations as well as your data cache access operator. So the data cache will be used for what? Data operands, whereas arithmetic logical unit performs what? Logical operations. Okay. Or even floating point operations. Okay. And then in this stage, in execution stage, no, see all the U and V pipeline instructions except your conditional branches, no, they will be verified for your correct branch prediction. For that is happens execution state only this condition happens. Okay. And microcode, as I said previously, we have a microcode unit that is designed for use for both what U and V type pipes. Okay. And last stage is nothing but your write back. So this right WB. So it is a final stage of this 5-stage pipeline. Okay, write back. So in this stage, the CPU, it updates the contents of the registers and also it also updates the status of the flag registers after completion of the execution. Okay. And as said previously, what at this stage in write back stage, the V pipeline conditional branch instruction is also verified for correct branch predictions. Okay, so all this is what you call it as what superscale architecture occurring in parallel. So this is the 5-stage pipeline which usually happens in 586 or Pentium processor. So this is what we discussed in now. And moving to your floating point. I think I don't know whether you remember or not. So when in the beginning I said what we have floating point, separate floating point unit, and this floating point unit has 8-stage pipelining on. Okay, so that's what here I have mentioned it. So I can just make a note of it. We'll go to the diagram and then we'll come back. Okay. So we have 8 stages: prefetch, decode 1, decode 2, execute. So I think the first 4 are common, and the last one I think write back is common. So instead of this, here we have 3 new stages available. So floating point execute 1, floating point execute 2, and write float and error report. So all the stages are new here. So there is a diagram. So I can just make it of it. So the first 5 stages are already there, and the remaining 3 stages are new, as I said, which are included in this floating point unit. Okay. So now we'll see what is the function of what is the stages usually takes place. So the Pentium processor, it has been here in this. It has been designed to incorporate on-chip numeric data processors. That feature is also available in the Pentium processor. Okay. So we have 8-stage pipelining. The floating point unit of Pentium has an 8-stage pipelining. So and these are the 8 stages you remember: prefetch, decode 1, decode 2. D1, D2, and execute each stage. Execute a floating point execute 1 and 2. We usually call it as X1, X2 stage, and then followed by write WF write float and error reporting. Okay, so these are the 8 stages available. So the 5 stages of the pipeline are similar to your U and V integer pipelines. The first 5. Okay, so which means so during these stages almost so. Actually, here, if you have noticed, means there are 2 execution stages in Pentium. So first execution stage, X1 stage, and second execution stage, X2 stage. So in these 2 stages, the floating point unit reads the data from the data cache and executes your floating point calculations. So there has been added extra here. So we'll see in the stages one by one in detail. Okay. So prefetch. So it's same as your integer pipeline of your Pentium processor, no change. What about decode? So again, decode 1, decode 2, almost everything will be same as your in the integer pipelining of your Pentium processor. Okay. So here again, as I said, I want to mention here once more. So decode stage is required whenever there is a control word from the previous stage. D1 stage is decoded to complete the instruction decoding. Okay. So operand next is your 4th stage, operand fetch. So what is operand fetch? D1, D2, data catch and calculate, EX or execute, okay, whatever it may be. So actually during the execution stage, the floating point unit may access your data cache and the floating point register to fetch your operands. So before writing the floating point data to the data cache, the floating point unit internally converts this internal data format into appropriate memory representation format for that. Okay. So for that purpose, we use this something called opcode fetch or execute unit. And followed by what? Floating point execute 1. So floating point execute 1 means what? So any idea I have? Floating point execute. So we have 2 floating point execute units. So the floating point execute stage 1, first stage. Okay. So it executes the first steps of your floating point calculations. So while reading the floating point data from the data cache, the floating point unit writes the data into the floating point registers. So this is these steps will be handled by your first stage. And in the second stage, okay, floating point execute 2, X2 stage, the floating point unit executes the remaining steps of the floating point computations. Okay, and followed by your WF write float. So name itself indicates write float. So which means what? The floating point unit completes the execution of the floating point calculations previously in previous stage itself, and it writes a computed result into any floating point register file available. Okay, and last is a error reporting. So at this stage, the floating point unit generates report. About regarding the internal special situations and updates about your floating point status. So similar to your PSW. So how your PSW gets updated after each and every arithmetic operation, here also what? So the floating point status will be updated at the end of this error report. Okay. So in addition to this, the floating point unit, just you can see at the right side, bottom rightmost, or you can just refer this floating point unit. We have something additional units called something called what adder. So the floating point unit, no, it consists of Pentium. It consists of dedicated. We have a dedicated adder, multiplier, and division units available. So all these are independent circuits. They are used to perform addition, multiplication, division, or other mathematical operations. With very few clock cycles. That is the main thing we have to note that. Okay, well. So apart from this, there are 5 segments. Okay, well, available. So the 5 segments, like floating point adder segment (FADD), we call it as FADD. Floating point multiplier segment (FMUL), and floating point divider segment (FDiv). So all these also what available in case of your Pentium processor. Okay. So I think we are not seeing in the detail about these segments, but we have option for all these segments also. And moving on to register set. Moving on to register set. So almost, if you see, means register sets of this. What I want to say, Pentium processor. No, it will be same as your 386. I repeat, register set of Pentium 80586 processor will be same as your what 80386 processor. Okay, not 486, 386. So in addition to 386 processor, we also have some 2 new registers being added called the CR4 and TR4 in the. So these registers have been added in the register set of your Pentium processor. Okay. So actually, so the CR4 we should call it as what control register 4. It controls the Pentium processor extensions for virtual mode operations. Okay, and in addition to it, it also the CR4 register is also used for what debugger support and control register TR12, as the name indicates, control register TR12. So it enables the activation for certain new features of Pentium process, like your branch prediction, superscalar operation. So you can enable or disable depends. So for all this, we use the control register called TR12. Okay. So in addition to it, we also have what 3 new flags also been added in eFlags register. So of this Pentium processor. So out of this 3 new flags added, 2 flags are used to support your virtual 8086 mode of operation, and the third flag it indicates if a processor supports what CPU ID instructions. Okay. So whenever processor can set clear the ID flag, it can execute what CPU ID instructions. So those things is also available in case of it. So those are 3 new features which have been added in case of your Pentium processor. And the rest of the registers, no, almost same. So I think if you just go through the diagrams, you can able to understand. So is there anything new in this diagram? I think the same diagram I have posted in 80386. Here also same thing. So we have 32-bit registers. Either you can take as 8-bit, 16-bit, or 32-bit, depends. We have a 32-bit instruction pointer, EIP. We have 6 segment registers. As I said, previously in the previous register, we have something called GS and FS. So it is similar to your extra segment. You can able to access all the data segments with the help of this GS and SS. And we have a 32-bit eFlag registers. So same register set. If you are thorough with 80386, same thing you can apply for 805, 486 as well as 586 also. Okay. Just you can have a look. Okay. Well, again, these ones are also same to 80386. Nothing new. Flag registers. So almost same as your 386 processor. And this is the last topic, your Pentium operating modes. Okay. So what are the modes? So what are the modes available in 80386? Any idea you have? Modes available in 80386. So how many modes are there in 386? How many modes are available in 486 and now in 586? So in 386 we had 2 modes. In 486 we had 3 modes, and now it has been increased to 5 modes. Okay, so it means there is a gradual increase in number of modes. Okay, so what are the 4 modes here? It is available is we have a protected mode, and then we have what real mode, and what virtual mode and system management mode. Okay, so we had totally 4 modes available in 386 processor. And then if you see the protected mode means, so it's actually the protected mode is what I want to say is, so all the instructions and architecture features will be available in this protected mode, which means the local operating mode of the processor. Okay, so the highest performance capability can be achieved in case of a protected mode. Okay, so moving to real mode. So whenever I say real mode, so it refers back to 8086. Okay, so it provides a programming environment for what 8086 processor. Okay, so and it also has a option to be ability to switch to protected mode or to what SMM mode. So this from real mode we have option or ability to switch to protected mode or system SMM mode. Okay, and virtual mode. So whenever, so virtual mode is combination of these two, as I said previously. See, real, product and virtual, the same logic, whatever applied for your 80486. So when the processor is operating in product mode, it can support only what quasi-operating mode of a virtual 8086 mode. Whereas, so this virtual mode, it allows the processor to execute what 8086 software in a product as well as your multitasking environment. For that purpose, we go for what this virtual mode. And moving to the last or something new for you, okay, is your SMM mode, system management mode. So any idea have what happens in this mode, system management mode? So you can just make a wild guess if possible. So system management mode. So this mode actually is exclusive for 80 Pentium process. So it provides provides an opportunity for the OS with a transparent mechanism for implementing your power management. So for example, we have a pin called SMI, external system interrupt pin. So when this pin is activated, so obviously what system management interrupt will be generated. So and the processor has to be entered into what? Obviously it will be entered into SMM mode. Okay. So in this mode, the processor switches to a separate address space. Saving the context of currently running program or task. Okay, before entering this, it says so similar to your I think the same thing happens when there is any instruction branch instruction in case of a 8086. So it will load the current content into your stack. No, here also same thing will happen. Okay, so the system management specific code will be executed transparently. So upon returning back from this SMM mode, the processor can be back to your real address mode. So product mode or virtual motor mode, other 3 modes in simple from the system management mode by using your RSM signal, something called reset, or simply you can use reset signal. Okay, so you can be back to your other 3 different modes. Okay, so these and all, and these are different. And regarding to data types, so almost your Pentium processor supports all the different types of data types available. Okay. So similar to your similar to your 80486 processor. So all the data types can be packed by CD, unpacked BCD, and then signed, unsigned, long integer, unsigned long integer. So all this ASCII. So all this will be supported strings. So all this will be supported by this okay, and Pentium processor. Okay. So with this, I'll wind up today's session. If you have any doubts, you can just ask. So I repeat, so do not worry about the advanced process architecture or don't have the feeling that the diagrams will be complex that way. So what I suggest is just go through 186 architecture and 386 architecture. That will be more than enough. Because if you are thorough with 386 architecture, the same thing you can write it for 486 as well as 586. Almost same, 90% will be same. And if you are thorough with 186, again 286 will be same. So if you so just go through the architectures of 80186 and 386. That will be sufficient for you. So any doubts, you can just post your questions. So with this, your unit number 2 is completed. So we may start with unit number 3 from next week onwards.